But uh, by coincidence, I got an email today. Leslie is representing the TSI Transitional Service of New York Incorporated, and TSI was awarded among three organizations in New York City awarded subsidies and tax credits by the governor to create, listen to this, affordable and supportive housing. TSI will receive $15.3 million
Oh,
to build a 127 unit development on Archer Avenue in Queens. They say they project that the construction will start um, by the end of this year. Leslie, you may know, probably know more than I do, but just because they say it's going to start doesn't mean it's going to start this year. But
yeah, we
that's
never know exactly when these things are going to start, but I've seen the plans and the drawings, and it's going to be beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
let me
Very
ask you right
exciting.
away. Um, it's in Queens. You have to be a Queens resident.
Well, it'll be for like it'll be like what's there'll be several different types of programs in there, but the supported housing piece will be mixed use housing. So there'll be a certain number of beds set aside strictly for people who have a mental health diagnosis. And then the other beds, the other apartments will be for people who just, because of their income, they're from the community and they qualify for the housing.
Okay. But they're all from Queens.
The community tenants will be from Queens.
Okay.
Sometimes for the mental health housing, people may be coming from another borough. That's a possibility, but the majority will be from Queens.
Okay. Thank you for the answer.
You're welcome.
So thank you for coming, Leslie. And you want to tell us a little bit about your agency and services you provide?
Sure. So Transitional Services for New York, this is our 50th year in operation. We started off in 1975 just as a 10-bed residential program on the grounds of Creedmoor, and the agency was started by a group of parents who had adult children with mental health, mental illness. And anytime there was a problem, they were in a hospital, they might have been in a state psychiatric center for a very long time. And they got together and said, we want something else. We want something else for our children. So that's how the agency was created. Now we have almost from 10 beds, we're almost 1,000 beds, either existing or in development. We have, in addition to, we have every type of residential program from a community residence, 24 hours supervised, type of group home to scattered site supported housing. We probably have an apartment in almost like every single neighborhood in Queens. We also have a program in the Bronx. We have 20 beds in Nassau County. In addition to our residential programs, we also have a lot of outpatient programs. We have a mental health clinic, behavioral health care coordination, a PROS program, which is kind of like a program where people go during the day and attend groups. We have education, training, and resource. We own a bookstore on Bell Boulevard in Bayside called Turn the Page Again that a lot of people are very familiar with. You can't get a cheaper book, right? Or better customer service. So we have a lot to do in Queens. If it's mental health in Queens, we're in it. We're involved in it. And yes, and we're developing. We have a lot of very exciting new buildings that will be put up in over the next however many years, including they're doing an entire um, rework. Like they really want to build up the Creedmoor campus. So there's going to be a whole lot of construction, and they're going to make it's going to look a lot more like a regular neighborhood with a lot more programs and businesses and all types of things happening. So
Okay.
a lot of exciting
From
things happening.
872.
Janice, can you? Okay. Leslie,
Meeting
Mhm.
ID.
can you talk
Okay.
to us about the
24.
process to gain housing in your organization? So if somebody I'd like to put the link to a SPOA form on the OMH site of New York State. If that's where that is, or do people come to you for the SPOA form, or what's that process look like to just get started from zero?
Okay,
You're
so
on.
to
Oh,
get
that's
started, a person is going to need to be in some kind of treatment.
Okay.
Because in order to get into any of our housing programs, you need what's called an HRA 2010E
1
application.
second, Gail.
And that's something that's done online through
Okay, my wife is saying.
HRA site. It's the Human Resources Administration, and that has to include a psychosocial and a psychiatric evaluation. So that's why the person has to be in treatment of some type, because they have to have the professionals who can write those reports up for them. It's HRA that determines what level of housing a person is appropriate for and what kind of housing they are approved for. So there are different populations that have different, some housing may be for people with a history of homelessness. Some are for people who are coming out of a homeless shelter at the moment. Some are for people who are coming out of a state psychiatric center. And there are some that are just, for anybody in the community who has the need for housing. So HRA makes that determination. Okay, I just unmuted myself. And that application gets sent to SPOA, and they will send it out to different agencies.
Okay. So the HRA
2010E. If you need there are different ways to get that done. I think Venture House actually has people who do that. We do have people who are trained to do it in our agency. People will be a part of our behavioral health care coordination program, and that staff may complete the application for someone. We also have a respite program. So a respite program, if a person's having an emotional or psychiatric crisis, they can go to the program for up to 28 days. And they work with the staff. It's mostly peer run. And they work on getting through that crisis and developing coping skills. But the staff there can also do that HRA 2010E application. But there are a lot of agencies that do it.
Okay, because the question for me is that, if somebody calls NAMI and says, how do I get that form? I'm not associated with an agency yet. My loved one's not in a hospital. I just want to start this process. Is that on an OMH website, or we should just say call intake at TSI, and
I mean, my CEO would be very happy for me to say call intake at TSI. Intake at TSI will be very happy to guide people through the process. But yes, they can also contact the Office of Mental Health or CUCS, who runs the SPOA. So
okay. One last question. The HRA 2010E, is that a New York City form as opposed to a Nassau County form?
yes,
Okay.
yes, a whole different system for Nassau County.
Yes.
Leslie, a question we get a lot of times are the rooms in the different configurations. Are they shared or single? Multiple?
Very good question. So in supported housing, if you're talking about the most independent setting where people, right, are fairly independent, need some staff support, though these days, some people need quite a lot of support these days, but the rents being what they are in Queens, we all know, I don't think you can even find a studio for under $2,200, and that's probably lowballing it a little bit. We have some single units, and we do have some shared units. In the shared units, people always have their own bedroom, but they'll be sharing the living room, the kitchen,
Oh, but they'll have their own bedroom.
the bathroom, but they'll always have their own bedroom, always. Because while we do believe that in New York City, it's quite natural for people to find roommates, right, through Craigslist,
Sure.
to move in with people they don't really know. It's not natural to have to share that close a space with someone that you don't know. So yeah,
I'm sorry, I apologize.
go ahead.
Your sites mixed ages and sexes, or uniform?
So a lot of our supported housing is scattered sites, so they're just out in the community and in different apartment buildings. It could be in a two-family house, it could be in a big apartment building. We don't the properties that we have that are single site, those aren't programs that just anyone can get into that easily. There are a lot of requirements for those, like the new construction that are the mixed use. It goes by, so either you have a mental health diagnosis, and usually there's some other criteria that you have to meet, like it may be a history of homelessness or a history of multiple psych hospitalizations. Um, but then there are also those community tenants who get it through a lottery process. There'll be like the if there's an opening, it'll be advertised, and there'll be a PO box that people, send an application to, and it's like a first come, first serve type of situation.
Where are they generally advertised so people will know where to look?
Honestly, that I'm not so sure. They
Okay.
have to advertise in places where I know there are some rules about it being in places where a wide variety of people are going to see it, so they'll have to make sure that it's in like newspapers for people that speak different languages, and for people that are, may have or economically, have like a need for, a financial need. So it can be in many different places. I wish I could say there's like one place where they advertise, but I don't know.
Just got a question about housing in Nassau County. Someone will be talking about Nassau County, so we'll get to that. Oh, Liz just said the same
Somebody's asking about Suffolk County. When the Mental Health Association speaks about Nassau County, he can address that too. Um, the concept really is the single point of access with the Office of Mental Health. So you start there. You start with this generic form and you work outwards. And pretty much, as I said before, you need to be familiar with the different housing agencies in your area. If you want your loved one close to you, go visit them. You can ask more about this tonight. And we can contact us. We could give you a couple of names of places to start in Suffolk County, like Options or Concern. Those are some of the larger mental health housing, supportive housing agencies in Suffolk County. Okay.
You could also contact the Long Island Field Office.
Of the Office of Mental Health.
The Office of Mental Health, Long Island Field Office.
Okay.
Or the Nassau County SPA. They don't call it SPOA in Nassau County. They call it SPA.
Okay.
We have 20 beds of supported housing in Nassau County, but to qualify for that, a person has to be coming either right out of Pilgrim State Hospital, or they have to be coming out of one of the state's state-operated community residences in Nassau or Suffolk County. That's the thing about a lot of the mental health housing, is that it is for specific groups. So like I said before, like some beds are only for people who are in a homeless shelter now. Some are for people who are in an adult home. Some are for people who have a history of, they spent many years in a psychiatric hospital. So it all depends on the different contracts that we get. When there's a need identified, OMH will put out an RFP, a request for proposals, and they'll say, okay, this is what we're doing. We need people who will provide housing for a forensic population or for veterans, who have a mental health diagnosis. And then, agencies all submit their proposals, and then the agencies who do the best job on the proposal get selected. And then that housing has to be for those specific people. But there are some that are just generic.
Most of, or all or any of your housing available to public transportation?
We make sure that when we take an apartment, that it's always near public transportation because very few people that we have drive and or affording a car is really difficult. So we always want it to be within 1 or 2 blocks of a bus stop or a train station. And we also make sure that there's a grocery store, a pharmacy, like different amenities nearby in the neighborhood that they can easily get to.
Speaking of grocery stores, with people given assistance, people who need the assistance, and not all the people, with their medicines, how's that arranged?
So for people who need assistance with medicine, like they need it to actually be supervised, they need staff to be present when they take their medication. They probably wouldn't be in a scattered site supported housing program. They would either be in a community residence program or an apartment treatment program. And apartment treatment is where usually about 3 people share an apartment. Again, they all have their own bedroom, but staff are visiting several times a week. They can also come every single day for people who need to have their medication supervised. So the staff will actually come twice a day, delivering medication and supervising the medication.
What is that level of support referred to as? Like, how do
As,
you,
as far as what the medication or that the program?
the program? So is it supportive housing with medication management, or just so if I were to put on the form, I'm looking for this kind of housing, what would that be called?
Okay, so it's apartment treatment. And it's also part of level, so when the HRA application is done, people will be approved for level 2 housing, which are the more supervised settings, or community housing. And that's the scattered site, kind of more independent housing. Then there are different levels of supervised housing. Again, some people have never lived on their own. They don't have a lot of independent skills. They need staffing 24 hours a day. And the whole point of having them in that program is to work with them on building those skills, right, as they work on their recovery, and then they can move on. Hopefully that's the goal. We'd like to see everyone eventually in supported housing, living on their own. Not everyone gets there. Everyone's different. Not everyone is as committed to working on their recovery. Some people have more challenges than others, but that's what we're there for.
I know several people who, prior to being accepted to housing or even offered housing, have sleepovers.
If you're in, yes. So if you're and certainly if you're in scattered site supported housing, I mean, you have your own apartment. You've got a lease to that apartment, and we can't put any rules down that you can't have a guest stay
No, no, no.
over.
What I mean is prior to being accepted into a specific apartment or specific house, are the potential residents given the chance to meet and get along with the people he or she will be living with?
Okay, we will have people like come together and take them out for lunch and let them, get to know each other. We can do that, 2 or 3 times if necessary. Very often we have people who may be in another one of our programs together and they really get along and they want to live together. So, but yeah, people coming from outside, we would have them like get together and go out to lunch. We can't just have someone who isn't admitted into the program just sleep over and stay over. That's kind of a liability.
Okay. Another question that I've been asked several times: Can if the person isn't working, can they have visitors during the day?
Yes, they can have visitors during the day. Of course. We don't really have in that level of housing, we don't really have rules, like very big, a lot of rules about visitors in our community residence programs because there are different things going on throughout the day. There might be different programming, like we run groups, there are meal times, there's medication times. So we do have like a visitation schedule, and obviously if someone's mother can only come at a time when it's, that's outside of those hours, we're going to make an accommodation because we want
Understood.
people to be connected to their family.
Thank you.
But in the more independent housing, we don't have rules about visitors. If someone has their own apartment, they can have a visitor whenever they want to.
Okay, now the opposite. I'm living in one of your housing situations. Can I go home for holidays and other things to be with my family?
Of course you can. Of course. We work very closely with families, and the holidays are such a difficult time, and we find the people who have the worst time are the ones who see everyone else going home and they don't have anywhere to go.
It's so
So yeah,
sad.
we do have people. Again, if you're in your own apartment in supported housing, you just come and go as you please. You can spend a night out wherever you want. It's your life. You can, do what you want. If you're in one of our supervised settings, then you're going to sign a home leave form so that we know that you're spending time out, and you're going to tell us when you're coming back and where you're going and what the phone number is. So
We just got a question. What are the fees involved for the
good
family?
question. So for our supervised settings, and this includes our apartment treatment program where the staff are visiting quite frequently, people pay a program fee. And that program fee is set by it's set by the SS. It has to do with the SSI rate, right? So people who get SSI because they're disabled, most of that money goes towards the program fee, and then they get what's called a personal needs allowance. And that's with the remainder of the money. The exact numbers right now, I want to say the fee is between $1,100 and $1,200 a month, and then there's like around $220 that the person gets as a personal needs allowance for the month. But again, they're not in like the supervised residences, they're like most things are provided for them. And
At 220 a month, what does that cover? Does that cover food too?
no, well,
That's the personal thing.
that's their personal needs, but they'll also have SNAP benefits
Okay.
to help pay for food. In the apartment treatment program, the fee is the same amount, but we subsidize it. So we give people $152 like back so that they'll have more money
Oh, great.
for them in their pocket so that they can afford food. And we run a food pantry out of one of our offices. We actually had a pastor who has a grant, and it's a wonderful, our Braddock office. We have this great food pantry now that we get to really help a lot of people out with food, not just our own clients, but people in the community. In supported housing, the scattered site apartments, they don't pay a program fee. People pay rent, and it's 30% of their income. So if they get SSI, if they have wages, if they have a pension, whatever their income happens to be, they only pay 30% of their income, and then we give them a utility credit to help them pay their utility bills. So they never pay more than 30% of their income towards the rent. So you could have a situation, the apartment costs $2,400 a month. 30% of their income is $200. They pay $200. The agency pays the rest.
Hi,
Okay, one of our former board members encountered this several times. What happens when the residents don't get along?
If there are roommates in supported housing, first we try all the mediation.
Hmm.
We'll have people come into the office. We try to work things out. We'll get the treatment teams involved. We'll have case conferences. We'll make extra visits. But if it really can't work out, we will move people. We don't want anyone to be miserable. So
is
there are
there,
times we've had to move people. And there are sometimes we learn that there are some people that really can't share.
is
They're
there a,
just not. Mhm.
hi, sorry, go ahead, finish.
No, that's okay.
Is there a list of apartments where they're located? That
I
you
mean,
can list?
no, we don't have like a list that it's not like a It's not like we're a realty company or just like a property management company that we have a list of all our vacancies. Since you have to go through this process to get into our housing, it's not just something that we advertise to the public. There's like a whole system that we have to go through in order to get referrals. We have to list all of our vacancies, and then the referrals are funneled to us. But again, that's a closed system. It's not public.
Well, I know, like my son, he's 30 and he's going to a program through NAMI, and he was approved with the housing. But when he went to the housing, he had to share an apartment, and the person that he was with, I said, is there any way that I could pay out of pocket the difference so he could have his own room, his own apartment or whatever, and I will pay separate on top of what the state federal funding is. And
Mhm.
they couldn't provide me that answer, because I'm willing to pay. Like right now, I'm paying privately for my son for him to have a room.
Mhm.
And he can't live in the house. Like I didn't kick him out, but there was a lot of issues with in my house with my daughter and stuff.
You cut out for like a little bit there, but if I get what you're asking if can he get his own apartment by you contributing? So it's in addition to the 30%, you're
Yes,
paying more so the agency can afford that.
yes,
That has happened. We need permission from the Office of Mental Health to do that. Sometimes we'll have a tenant who comes to us and maybe they have a good income, and they'll say, well, I can afford to pay a bit extra, but we do have to get approval from the Office of Mental Health in order to do that. We've also had people in a couple of situations, we've had people actually go and rent an apartment. They take the lease in their name, and then they provide a sublease to their child. They have their child living in the apartment. So we just, instead of us paying, we just, like, you would become the landlord and we would send our rent portion to you. Whether your adult child pays you or not, that's not our concern. You know what I mean? Like that's an arrangement between the two of you.
okay,
But we have seen that. We've also seen people purchase a co-op
okay,
for their child.
uh-huh,
So Leslie, to organize something like that, we've had lots of people ask us that question over the years. I think different agencies have different answers to that question. But is that something that somebody would put in the initial form, the HRA 2010E or the SPA form? Is that something you might articulate in that form, or that is asking per agency if they will help you with that?
I think it's more to ask the individual agency because you might, I don't know how that would affect the application itself. It might seem like, well, there's a parent here who's taking care of this person. They don't really need the housing as desperately as somebody else who has no, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that would be the kind of thing I mean, I know like different agencies have different practices. Like sometimes people will come to us and they're already living in an apartment, but they've been struggling. They've been struggling with their mental health. They've been struggling to pay the rent. So they get approved for supported housing, but they're really happy in their apartment and they don't want to have to leave that apartment. We'll let them stay there. Some agencies I know say no.
Correct. I've
Just
never had
like,
anybody say yes before.
yeah, we do it because if the person is if I mean, we'll check out the apartment. We have to make sure that it's a legal apartment, that there are no life safety issues present, that there aren't a bunch of open violations or anything like that. So, and it has to, of course, also be affordable for us to take on. But yeah, we don't force people to leave their apartment if they come to us already in an apartment.
Okay. Before we move on to Mental Health Association, Lizzie, I wanted to ask you again, we've touched on this before about the actual availability. David started the evening out with the announcement that TSI New York has received this grant, and I know you're doing some other building on the Creedmoor campus. With all that said, that's probably 10 years away or something of that along those lines. Right, or maybe less, I don't know. But with that said, today, how many rooms do you have available? What is the wait list look like? Or if you even see a wait list, what can you provide versus what is the need in Queens?
I mean, we do have openings. We do have openings. We don't usually have as many openings in our generic beds, but if a person does meet the other qualifications, like they have a history of homelessness, or they were in a state psych center, or they were in another hospital. They could have been at Zucker Hillside Hospital for, a long time. And they qualify for one of those contracts, then we do have openings. We have quite a few for people who have a history of homelessness. They don't have to be homeless right now.
Is there a number I could reach you at?
Sure. Sure.
Can
You want me to should I put it in the chat?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So go back to it if necessary.
Okay.
And if everybody could just put their questions in the chat, I would really appreciate it. That way everybody has an opportunity to ask a question. So, yes, whatever you put in the chat, a link or whatever, Leslie, I will post onto the link that I put at the top, which is our monthly meeting webpage where we post the recordings. And Lizzie, also, if you want to just stick your email, if that's the best way.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Thank you. So, I don't know what Steve put in there. So, David, if you want to introduce Jeff.
Yeah, it's my Leslie. Thank you so very much. We really appreciate your time and your information. It was very helpful to us.
You're very welcome. So that means you're done with me for the evening?
Well, that's up to you.
If you want to hang around,
I can hang around for a bit.
Okay.
great.
Thank you, Leslie.
We
Really
appreciate
appreciate
your
it.
effort so very much. Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Jeff McQueen, who's the Executive Director of the Mental Health Association of Nassau County. And we welcome you, Mr. McQueen.
How you doing? Thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right. So I don't know that there is much information that I can give you that Leslie has not already covered.
Okay.
I think the housing system is pretty duplicated across the state of New York. They use different applications and they may call the process a different name, but basically, if it's operated by the Office of Mental Health, it probably looks the same. Some housing that we may provide aren't the Office of Mental Health. They might be housing that is funded by Oasis and sort of. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so it may be funded by Oasis, and so the qualifications to get into those housing may be a little different, but predominantly it all looks the same. The reason why Nassau County calls it SPA and not SPOA is because we have an application for the health home to get into care coordination that's called the SPOA. And so we try not to confuse the two because we already have an application that's called SPOA, and so we call it SPA. But it's actually the same application that you fill out in Suffolk County. There's no different application. It's the same one. People just pronounce it differently.
But in Nassau County, it's two different.
What do you mean? No, it's the same application. It's the SPA.
In Nassau as well as Suffolk County.
Yeah, it's the same application that you're filling out. It's going to the same hub. The difference is that some people call it SPA and some people call it SPOA. In Nassau, we call it SPA because our SPOA application means that you're applying for care coordination, not for housing. So to separate the two, we call the housing application SPA, but it's still a single point of access.
Okay. So to
That
clarify
sounds
this,
so governmental.
yeah, to clarify the starting point. So my loved one is not in housing, my loved one is not in a hospital, my loved one is not incarcerated. They've been living with me, but they are ready to go out on their own. What's step one?
I think step one, so the first thing I would ask is and obviously I'm looking at whole person wellness, and it's hard for me to talk about housing without talking about everything that could be offered to a person when they're taking this step on their own. The first thing I would ask you is, have you completed a SPOA application, and do they have the wraparound services of care coordination in their life? Because doing this without a care coordinator could be difficult because they're going to need more than just housing. And so I would ask, do you have a care coordinator? If you do have a care coordinator, then the care coordinator could help with the completion of that application.
Where do you
If
get
you're
a care
going,
coordinator?
so you could probably go to just about any organization. Of course, I put my information in the chat. You're welcome to give us a call. We are an MCA for the health home. And so you would be able to contact us. We would do what is known as a ground up, which means we start you from scratch and get all your information to get someone to help support you through this journey in recovery and wellness. And then we would also complete that application for you.
Oh,
So it had been mentioned that Nassau County has housing, is able to provide housing. So talk to us about what
Yes.
Nassau County is offering.
So Nassau County has all three levels of housing. And we also, based on the agency, you may be able to get into housing that is not even part of the SPA system. And the reason why I tell you that is because organizations like Community Housing Innovations, Concern for Community Living, Options, they have housing that are not part of the SPA system, that you could actually reach out directly to the organization and see if they have vacancies and fill out the application. Most of our housing at the Mental Health Association is SPA housing, but we do have a 24 one-bedroom apartment building that is part of HUD. And so the criteria for that is that you had been homeless for a significant period of time, and then you would be able to fill out that application directly with us to get on the waiting list or to apply for that one-bedroom apartment. And there are others who are part of the COC, right? The Coalition for the Homeless, and those applications are also possibly not in SPA, and you would be able to reach out directly to those agencies to apply for one of those beds. And we have all three levels of housing that Leslie had mentioned. We have community residences, which are 24-hour staffed. We have apartment treatment program, which is the middle ground. Most of the individuals in these houses are able to hold medication for at least a week. And then the counselor will come and do another med pour for another week worth of meds. But you'll see the counselor more than once a week. They'll drop in quite often. But these homes are normally 3-bedroom homes with 3 individuals living there. And you each have, each of the residents have their own room, and they share the common area of the house. And then the next level is supported housing. These are usually scattered sites. That can be anything from a 1-bedroom apartment to a 3-bedroom home. They're all SROs, which means that they all are single room occupancy, where the individual will live in their own room and share community space, kitchen, living room, backyard, things of this nature. And those are the levels that are pretty much across the board throughout the state. The only thing that will differ is who's funding the house and where, and so how they're managing the intakes on those homes. So if it's substance use, most of those houses may not be in SPA. You would have to contact the housing organization directly.
So to clarify that, the housing for and recovering housing for those with the substance abuse concern is going to go through a different process. Yeah,
they'll most of those houses, you have some houses that are in SPA simply because the ESHI or the supported housing application process, as of late, they have not been requesting that housing just be for those with mental health challenges. but also those who just have life challenges in general. So we may apply for this application. They may award us 24 beds, but 24 beds does not mean that you need to have a mental health diagnosis. It just may mean that you need to be experiencing life challenges, be anywhere along the gambit, and you would qualify for the housing.
So what's the availability in Nassau County for the OMH funded housing, which you are mostly referring to?
Yeah, you mean how many vacancies are there?
Correct.
I don't know that I would know that, or even know how to know that, simply because there's not a live, there is CARES, but there is not a live reporting system that instantly lets us know that there's a vacancy. So if an organization is slow about reporting those vacancies, then we may not be able to tell how many true vacancies that there are. And that even goes for OMH. If they're not updated live, in other words, if there's not some trigger that makes sure once a bed is empty, it goes into the system, then there is no true way of knowing that. I know for our supported housing system, we have three. We have three vacancies at this current moment.
3 out of how many?
133.
Okay. So by and large, if you only have 3, or maybe that's a good number, I'm not sure. Is there a wait list that you prepare people when they ask you that question? How long it might take?
No, so the wait list is not, these are SPA beds. And Leslie talked about like Target A, which means the Target A means that they're not going to send us anyone to those beds unless they come from a psychiatric setting, right? And so there's no way for us to determine what that waiting list is like because none of the agencies that have SPA housing control the SPA list.
Right.
That's something that OMH does, or the LGA, meaning the county office, does itself. So Suffolk controls their list, Nassau controls their list. There's a liaison from Suffolk that's part of that SPA intake system, and then there's a liaison from Nassau. And in tandem, they work together to control that list and, you know, support where people are going and when they'll go. But we've had intakes to those beds, and the problem is that the individuals that they may have targeted for those beds are not adequate for that level of housing. You know, they're not ready, right? And so all we can do is give them a shot, do an intake, let them do an overnight. And our overnights are not actually overnights. We usually will do Thursday to Monday. And then see how things go from there. And if they're not adequate for the housing or if something goes wrong, then we report out that this didn't work for these particular reasons. And this is what we're suggesting be done next.
McQueen, what happens to the person who isn't accepted for housing or the opposite, refuses the housing? They put on the bottom of the list?
Not always. So if you refuse the housing simply because you felt that the house was dirty, you didn't like the way the roommates were carrying on, this could be someone who's active in recovery, but the roommate that they were trying to be paired with could be smoking marijuana and it jeopardizes their recovery. Then what will happen is you won't get that house. And I believe the magic number is 3. So SPA will then again target you for another bed, let you do another overnight, and then you will go in and give it another shot. Let's just say you turn down all 3, then that might pose a complication for you to be able to get another offering right away. What I oftentimes tell people is this. If you come into our housing and you don't like it for whatever reason, you can tell me any reason, or you can tell me you don't like the wall being blue.
What happened? Jeff, are you still there?
Looks like he froze.
Okay.
Once you're in the system, than it is to get you back into the system.
Yes, could he repeat that because he froze?
Jeff, you froze for a few minutes there. We lost you.
Oh, did I? Oh, you know what? I pulled up at home. I think my Wi-Fi connected. That's why. So What I was saying is that even when an individual doesn't like the bed or the room or the housing or whatever it is, I would suggest to them, and I oftentimes tell my staff, tell them to take it and let them know that we'll work diligently to find them somewhere else, because it's so much easier to move you around in the SPA system once you're in it than it is to get you back into it.
A big
Yeah, I
clue.
love that.
It's a good
Yeah.
clue.
You know what? I want to ask a question from the chat. It's a little off this, but they
That's fine.
posed it a while ago. What if somebody is in a position to donate a home to either OMH, to an options, to wherever, and with the with the guidance, the legal contract that their loved one can live there for on infinitum. They've donated this home, their loved one with a mental illness can live there and be monitored, cared for by the agency of which accepted this home.
So I think the bigger question is this with that person paying rent, or is that just for free?
I don't know
Are
the
they gonna
answer.
Okay.
And the idea is that the
reason-
family donated the house. So
Right. Okay. So OMH can't take the property.
Okay.
The property would need to be donated to an organization, to a community-based organization.
Like a
So,
concern.
and
I remember, yeah.
Yeah, like concern. So we've had property donated to us before.
Okay.
And the property came with the stipulations that the house has to be used for individuals with developmental disabilities.
Okay.
That was the stipulation. And so we took the home, and that's what we did. We opened up a home for children with autism. And that house operated for over 30 years, right? There's the house isn't the question. The question is the amount of beds allowable to an organization. Just because you give me the house doesn't mean I'm allowed to operate the beds. I'm only allowed to operate the number of beds that I've been awarded.
Okay.
And so because I have 133 scattered sites, that just means that I'm only allowed 133. So if you give me the 134th site, I have to use it outside of the SPA system. I can use it, and I can put your home, your child in it, and I can honor your stipulations, but it will not be part of the OMH system. It would have to just be a way that we would privately figure out how to fund it and then continue to move on from there. Because the beds that we get through OMH are part of the granted awarded system. And if you're not awarded more beds, you can't operate more beds, not within OMH. But you can out of OMH. You could take the house and say, oh, we'll just operate this privately. I could do that.
Okay.
Does anyone in the audience, the visitors, have any questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
Well, we have a person he lives in Arizona right now, and he wants to move, and he has a mental health diagnosis and everything else. And we want to start the application to bring him back to New York again in Nassau County. His mother lives in Nassau County, and he wants to come back to his mother. What is that we need to do?
So the complication, and we're talking about, is he able to live on his own?
No, he needs supportive housing.
Okay, supported housing means that he is on his own.
Not supportive, meaning, I'm sorry, there are 3 levels of supportive housing, right? There's a community, there is
community
ATP.
residence. Yeah, that's not supported housing. That's community residence.
He would need, he would need an apartment treatment program.
Okay, so he can kind of do things on his own. He can take his meds for a little while, but he needs someone checking in on him on a regular basis.
Right. He needs, and he needs to be in the program as well as a, like
a day program of some sort.
Correct, day program, correct.
Okay, so we operate a pros as well. So What I would suggest in that regard, because that's a Medicaid situation. And so the bigger problem with that is that his Medicaid is going to need to be county oriented. So in other words, if he's coming to Nassau County, you're going to want to switch his Medicaid over to Nassau County.
I don't know if he
Now-
has probably has Medicaid. Okay.
Yeah, he probably has Medicaid.
Okay.
And if he doesn't, then I would say go ahead and get him started on Medicaid. Now, one of the things I would suggest that could probably make this easier is I would reach out to care coordination, like I said originally, and because most of us who operate within the health home, some of us, well, I can't say most of us, but some of us in our organization does specifically, a portion of our care coordination is considered net deficit. What that means is that these are individuals who do not have billable Medicaid in Nassau County. They can have Medicaid, they can have it in California, but that's no good to us here in Nassau County, which means technically he doesn't have Medicaid. So they could get on this care coordination as net deficit, where the care coordination team could still act in his favor as if he were with Medicaid. They could help with the application process. They could help get things transferred over. You get what I mean? They can get the documentation of the psychosocial here. They can find out everything they could have him probably right at the door of, you can move today. We're almost there. You get what I mean? And then he might be with his mom for whatever length of time. But
let me
go
ask
ahead.
you. Let me ask you. So, can we get one of the care coordinators in Nassau County? If one is not, I don't know how difficult it is to reach the other side in Arizona.
Yeah, I don't think you would need to. I think you would just need to get one in Nassau County,
Nassau County.
to work
Okay.
to work on the transition. I put my number in my card in the chat,
Okay.
and I think it has a generic number on it, which is 516-489-2322. That's the
Okay.
agency's main number. And then
What's
when you call that, you could ask for care coordination.
Okay. So, what the agency name is?
Is Mental Health Association of Nassau County.
Oh, okay. Okay. Mental Health Association of Nassau County.
Now, the other thing I may be able to do is also, because MHA is like NAMI, we have affiliates all over the country. So I'm sure we have an affiliate in Arizona.
Okay.
So what we could do is reach out to a sister organization in Arizona and partner with the collaboration in the transition.
Okay. Okay.
But I would reach out to care coordination and let them know what it is that you're trying to get accomplished, and then they'll take it from there. They'll
Thank
know
you.
what to do.
Okay, thank you so much. That really helps. And once let's say care coordination and does all the application and all of that, so is there some sort of how long of a wait? Like you said, you don't know how long of a wait depending on the urgency of the candidate?
Yeah, it just depends. I mean, obviously we would put him down as homeless because he's
Okay.
not here in a home.
Right.
And our ATP, I think our ATP has 2 vacancies.
Okay.
But our ATP is only 15 beds. Our SPA system our supported housing system is a lot larger than our ATP. We only have, and we got like 33 beds in CRs. We've got 15 beds in ATP and 133 in supported.
You're
So-
using acronyms of which we don't know what that meant.
I'm so sorry. So the CR is the community resident. ATP is apartment treatment program.
Okay.
So the community resident is the most
24-hour staff.
is 24
That's the
how many
highest level of need.
highest how many
That's the highest
beds?
level of need.
How
We
many?
have 15.
15. And ATP has how many?
I mean, we have 33 CR beds.
Okay.
We have 15 ATP beds, apartment
Okay.
treatment beds.
And how many
Yeah.
do you have scattered? That
Scattered, we have 133.
okay. In that scattered kind of a situation, is still a monitor, like people come, the care coordinator or the
Yes. So
okay.
they're only required to come once a month. But what we
Oh.
suggest is that they show up at the house once a week. So if there are 3 people in the house, Go see Robert on this week. Go see Tim next week, and go see John the week after. And then the fourth week, do a house meeting. That way you're putting your eyes on the house weekly, even though you technically are only going to see each person once a month.
Okay. Okay.
You get it?
Get it. Yeah. Yeah. So ATP
That way,
would,
if
yeah.
that
So
way, if one doesn't want all of that oversight, he doesn't have to have it. He sees you once a month, and he can go on about his business. But if the other ones do, at least you're coming into the house, giving them an availability to see you.
correct. So I think depending on the application and what kind of housing they need, they'll determine whether they need a CR, ATP, or the more
Or support.
support. Yeah. So we'll get in touch with the phone number with the agency and get a care coordinator first, and try to meet up with them and try to get an application. And like you said, you have a sister affiliates from Arizona to here, so hopefully
Yeah, I will look at that and reach out to them anyway. So when they reach out to the care coordinator, tell them you spoke with Jeff.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much, Jeff.
All right,
Anyone
you're welcome.
has any questions, could you put it on the messages?
Yeah, I put it in the chat box. So once again, somebody asked about the wait list. So there's no waiting list. You just go onto the OMH website or obtain a care coordinator, which may take a little bit longer, but just go to the OMH website and fill out the SPA application. There's no wait list for the application. It's just the processing within.
No, you can fill out there's only a wait list to get assigned to one of the programs. And if you have a specific town organization that you want to work with, there is a space for you to say, no, I want to be placed with options. And they will, right? Like that's what they'll do. And if you know ahead of time that organization has vacancies, then naming them isn't a bad thing, because they'll be able to go, oh, well, they do have vacancies and we don't have anyone targeted for that bed, so let's refer them. So some people kind of get pushed around that way and move a little faster when they have insight about where beds are available and when they're not.
Jeff, is there a
For
master
conditional
list
free to
somewhere?
What, the waiting list?
No, not a waiting list,
Oh.
but in other words, so Options and Concern have a long relationship with NAMI Queens-Nassau. So we've often referred to them and make reference to them. But is there a master list of private housing providers as well as OMH system providers in Nassau County, Queens, what have you? Is there a master list somewhere?
Yeah. So I'm sure there is, and I'm sure that list probably exists with like my care coordination team, where they need to know where housing is available.
Okay.
So, so tomorrow, I'm in the city in the morning, but I'll be back around 1-ish. Let me ask them that question and see if there's something that I could forward to you guys.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Let's see what other questions. There's a question in here. It's another one of those where I think sometimes it's a little confusing. Understanding how block grants work and your funding and the funding for specific kinds of beds and housing. So somebody asked, well, I've got a loved one living in an apartment in my home. They're on disability. Can I get funding for their apartment or something akin to that? What I've articulated is your funding as an OMH provider of housing is different than funding, right? So if you want to articulate that in a better way than I just did.
Sure. So the LGU, which is your local government, right? Like Nassau County or Suffolk County, OMH, the Office of Mental Health, or any of these government or local government offices, they're not allowed to provide you money unless you're a not-for-profit entity. So they couldn't give it to you even if they wanted to.
Right.
So if you are trying to get assistance with your housing, one of the things that you may be able to do is fill out a formal lease that you are leasing a location to your child, and then have your child apply for rental assistance, right? And then the Department of Social Services will assist that individual with rent, provided that they don't have an income. So if you have someone who doesn't have SSI or no way to pay a rent, but you are taking care of them and housing them, I would suggest that you go apply for food stamps for them. That would be an assistance, and that you would also fill out a lease, make them a tenant, and then go apply for rental assistance for them, or let them go down and apply for rental assistance. And they will likely get some assistance to help pay their rent.
I like that. I hope everybody heard that, because that's very smart. There's
I mean, it's a
opportunity.
loophole in a sense. It's a
Right.
loophole. It's a loophole, right? But it's what makes it legitimate is that you are a homeowner who has a tenant that's not paying rent. The tenant is your child, but still there are costs in that you probably could use some assistance with, right? And so then you should probably figure out a way to have someone assist by paying for their rent. And that would be put them on a lease.
Yeah. I think that's where a care coordinator really comes in very handy. I'm in Suffolk County, and they told me they have a certain category for a loved one that's living with you and can't receive funds.
Yeah.
But I think when you're somebody like yourself, Jeff, who understands the structure of government and how to articulate things, of which a care coordinator, somebody like Jeff, that's your job, right? So they could be very helpful with that.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Terrific. I can't tell you enough. I really want you all to take advantage of that. The Mental Health Association it's here, and that's what you guys are here for, is to help us all through all of these processes. So
And that's why I say get a care coordinator.
Yeah.
Get a care coordinator. Get someone whose responsibility is to navigate the system.
Exactly.
And ask them all the questions that you need to ask. Find out everything that there is to know about coordinating care, right? It's free, right? Because it's charging their Medicaid with no out-of-pocket expense.
Right.
And if they don't have Medicaid, then there's still a free side, because they'll use the net deficit portion of it and still be able to provide the service. And they're also going to help them do things like spot applications, getting SSI, getting SSDI or whatever, right? They'll get their Medicaid turned on. It's going to help them navigate to get benefits where they might have discovered it's very difficult to do. Going to DSS is a nightmare. Their system is designed to count you out. They want to rule you out. They don't want to give you the services. Now, why is that? I don't know. Maybe they just need to make sure that you're serious about it, because you got people on the system who don't belong in the system. So, maybe that's their way of saying if they really need it, they'll keep coming. So I don't know. But what I do know is that if you get someone who can help you navigate that system, then it's a lot easier. Because I had a young man, and I'll just give you a quick story. I had a young man who was 18 years old. He came to see me, and the day he came to see me, he had this swollen eye. Someone had beat him up. He was couch surfing, right? And he was very angry, very traumatized. Obviously, he has a temper. He's not a happy kid. So I suggested at that time, listen, we got to get you to DSS. These are some things that we need to get done. And he said, I've been to DSS before. And I said, what happened? Well, they supposedly sent me an application or something to do, and I didn't get it because I didn't have a stable residence. And when I went back, I had to start all over again. And that's something that you should know. DSS does not have patience. If you start a process with the Department of Social Services and it gets interrupted, and they don't even care if it's by illness, you're going to start the process all over again. So it's very important to have a care coordinator, because even though you might not be able to do anything, the care coordinator could say, hey, you got an appointment on Wednesday, and you can be like, I'm totally sick. I'm not going to make it. Care coordinator be like, okay, then we need to call Renee and let Renee know you're sick and that you're not going to be able to make it, and get you another appointment, because we don't want to start this process over. That's the benefit of having someone coordinate care.
So I have a question here from somebody who's really desperate. I don't know that I want to read the whole question, but I want to just
read
bear
it. It's fine. You can read it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So daughter was prematurely discharged January 20th from inpatient stay. Have we heard this before? Yes, I'm so sorry. We've heard it so many times. She left her meds in the room of where she was living, Institute for Community Living, Broadway residence. Walked away and abandoned everything, does not want to live there, is wandering the streets of New York City, does not return their messages, nor have they seen her since then. She has had interviewed and visited, but is uncomfortable with other residents there with severe mental illness. So I guess it's happened before she walked away. ICL is her rep payee. She won't even return to pick up her SSI money remaining after rent was paid. They said they could hold her room for 3 months, which will expire in mid-April. What will happen to her SSI, etc.? Will she be refused re-entry to the housing for another place for this? We don't know where she is. Missing person report was filed, although we have texts from her. Saw her briefly in Penn Station to give her food, clothes, and subway card. Won't answer questions. Horrible, right?
Mm, yeah, that's a very difficult situation. So her SSI gets, so a person on SSI cannot accumulate more than $2,000. So once that happens, then they're going to have to send back whatever comes in order to even keep the account open as a rep payee, right? Or if the checks are being sent out, then, well, it's not going to happen while they're paying the rent, that's for sure. Yeah, they could hold her bed for 90 days and they will probably do a bed hold, but the obvious thing is that she's going to lose the housing eventually. I don't know that there's a quick fix to that situation. The SSI is going to go back to SSI. Social Security is going to, but that's the easy part, believe it or not. The money going back to Social Security doesn't close her case. So he can be discovered, or like we had people go to jail for years, get out and SSI kick right back on, right? So that's the easy part. The benefits will still be where they need to be. The concern is her wellness, and how do we know that she's well? That's the part that catches my heart. Like, oh my God, where is she? How is she doing? And what can we do to make sure that we don't let this happen again? So that's just a tough situation. Are there? I guess the big question is are there any benefits that are electronic that are connected to her? In other words, is there a credit card? Is there a benefits card, like a food stamp card, right? That we would be able to see if it's being used and where it's being used.
Yeah, I don't see him responding to that.
Yeah,
David,
like,
if you're still here,
Here,
you can,
yes.
okay.
And she does have a rep payee, and we have actually at times sent her money directly, but she has a certain amount that comes in as, which is the part that isn't used for her rent. And then
right.
but the thing is that she's so spooked by that place. I think somehow,
She's
because
spooked by what?
like she rides the
The
elevator.
housing or the rep payee?
No, not. I think she's spooked because of the vibe, and she feels like like she gets on the elevator, and there are people who actually have gotten violent there. So, or at least to a certain extent. So, I mean, there's a concern, probably a valid concern. But, the thing is, we're telling her all you'd really have to do is show up at the door and talk to them because, to get things going. But she doesn't. She's just spooked by it. She's had, she's been
So,
attacked before. So,
so let me ask you this, David.
yeah.
So you are able to be in contact with her? You do know where she is, and
We don't
like
know where
she
she is.
will reach
and
out to you?
every once in a while she'll reach out, and for a long time we had no idea where she was, and we're trying to find her, and I was having people anonymous. I was even getting people who were in the area to say check in on this place, Union Square or something, whatever. But in the meantime, she pretty much, like, at one point she really wanted something. She needed something that from home or something. So she, I guess, got up the courage to meet us in Penn Station, and then was out of there in like 10 minutes or something. When but in the meantime, I think that probably it would be really up to we would have to fill a form so that the police could take her in. But I think that's like really invasive. I mean, I think it's maybe what we have to do, but that's kind
Is
of
she
where
in a
we're at.
one-bedroom apartment?
Yes, it's like a floor, but there are a number of rooms. So she's in a facility which there's a whole floor, and they share that for meals and whatever. But she has her own room with a lock on the door. But to
Okay.
getting now, she's afraid of it, and she's
And
because
this
she's
is in the city?
and it's in the city. Although she was at Zucker Hillside, but then she
Okay.
wound up was picked up in the city. Like she was, you know, she was having an episode, and then she came in through the city. So she's kind of been back and forth. She's her legal
Right.
resident in Nassau County because she's our daughter, and that's what's on the books. But New York City
Okay.
originally found her, so she got into the New York City system. But then she wound up at
Okay.
Nassau community, Nassau University
And UMC? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then I think she was prematurely discharged there, and so she went back just for like
Mhm.
a hot minute to the facility, and then she was gone. Like that was over the holidays, and so it was really
Okay.
Christmas. This
So
happened.
so we have a respite. It's a 3-bedroom house um that is designed for crisis. And while in the house, they will help you try to navigate through the crisis, right?
Yeah.
It's a 3-bedroom home. You get your own bedroom, use the kitchen. You can move around the way you need to.
Wow.
But it's a 3-bedroom home, and it's for crisis. It's 24-hour staff, and it's called Turquoise House. And I don't know
Yeah.
if y'all have heard about Turquoise House or not. And it's all peer on top of that. No
I'm
clinicians, all individuals with lived experience.
Oh, yeah.
It's relatively
Right?
new, Jeff, or
No,
how old is
no,
that?
we've been open. Turquoise House 1 has been open around 8 years. Turquoise
8
House
years.
2 is going on probably about 5 now.
5. Okay.
So,
So to some of, you know, talk about it in AOT. We don't have to spend a lot of energy there, but let's just talk about mandated medicated management for some of these folks.
okay.
And what role do you guys play in that, if any?
Yeah, so we are one of Nassau counties. There's only 2. It's us and C&G. And we are one of Nassau County's AOT holders, right? So we have an AOT department in our care coordination with our care coordination team. AOT is assisted outpatient treatment. And it's basically set up so that if an individual is deals with X amount of incarcerations or hospitalizations due to what they consider to be not being adherent to their regimen, then they could be court mandated to be on this AOT program. So what AOT does is it's a high level of care coordination. It meets with them once a week. And it also is a part of the AOT. There's a treatment team involved that makes sure it mandates that you take meds when you're supposed to take them, as you're supposed to take them. And then once you complete your AOT, you can go on about your business and do what you need to do. But it's one way for individuals who have seemed to be harming themselves, for lack of a better term, by not being or appearingly harming themselves, right? By not being adherent to medication treatment, they get mandated to treatment.
Unfortunately, the hospital was asked to do, I'm David's wife. Unfortunately, the hospital was asked to do this AOT, and we had all the evidence, all the criteria, and the social worker just didn't want to bother, said it's really strict. He went on vacation and everything fell apart, and we've been encouraged to document it for the Joint Commission. But, it's just a comment
Right.
for people wondering about AOTs, that apparently they don't like applying for them, even if everything is in place that one would qualify for.
It's not
And I
that
think that
easy to
just depends
qualify,
on where.
though.
Yeah.
I mean, usually a person gets placed on AOT not just because they're not taking medication. Usually it's because they've had multiple hospitalizations
We're,
That's what I
or
was
really
saying,
aware of
Leslie.
it.
they've committed a
Yeah,
violent act.
yeah. That's
So
what I was
just,
saying, Leslie. It usually takes like a number of occasions of, hospitalizations or incarcerations, right? Because AOT is pre-forensic. It's like the beginning stage of an individual dealing with forensic background stuff into the mental health system. And so they try to prevent that by using the AOT system. So it's kind of really borderline trying to help someone not hurt themselves or anyone else for that matter.
it also takes a while for AOT to actually go through. It's not like it happens overnight. So especially if they determine that someone is no longer acute and they don't need to be in a hospital, they're not going to keep them there additional
That's
months
correct.
waiting for the
Yeah,
AOT to get put in place. So that becomes
yeah,
a difficult situation.
yeah. And don't forget that it's court mandated.
Yeah.
So this is a process. This is not, a person gets released from the hospital. We don't agree what's going on with them and we want them on AOT. There's a whole process that has to be implemented. Not only that, but clinical supervision is then provided directly with the individual. New assessments are done. It's a process.
Probably the best thing for your daughter, as Jeff was saying, would be a respite. I don't know where she is right now, but like we run a 10-bed respite in Queens. All the boroughs have a respite program. If she can call 988 and say I need to be put in respite, and they could help her with that
Yeah, they'll get her
process.
bed because there's some vacancies. They'll get her bed.
Yeah.
And working with her in the respite format could change her life. It could literally work on a process of getting her out of the house that she doesn't feel safe in. It could get her making sure that she's back into understanding why she takes meds and why the meds are good for her, and how to manage her crisis going forward. I tell people all the time that oftentimes entering a crisis respite does not change the crisis. What it does change is how you view it and how you manage it. And so we might be sending you back to the same location, but we're not sending the same person back to the same location. Your views and your means of managing it are so different after coming out of respite that it changes life. Because we use crisis as an opportunity.
Just got to convince somebody to come off the street to do that. But thank you very much for all the information.
That's the sad
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Otherwise, maybe hopefully she ends up someone calls she ends up in the hospital again, or even a
yeah,
shelter where they'll have to locate housing for her. They'll have to work on that. It's
Thank
yeah.
a shame. Helping people who aren't ready to accept the help it's one of the most difficult situations to deal with.
It is.
If
It most
ever,
certainly is.
if ever, and we all know that reality, if ever. It's difficult to articulate that, but
Yeah. And it's an ongoing struggle. It's something that all of our organizations deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I even have a presentation about You Can't Help Me.
yeah, exactly.
Can we watch that
Yeah.
somewhere?
I don't have it recorded, but maybe one day I'll come back to you guys and do a presentation on it. But it's
Yeah.
really difficult. It's really difficult.
But I do have to say, all of you on the call here, that, Jeff's organizations, Leslie's organization, Maya, I don't know if you're here or not, if you showed.
Having trouble getting on.
Oh, okay. But these guys have heart. They're not going to just turn you away and say, no room at the inn. You're going to find a social worker, somebody who is going to have a conversation with you and work you through it. This is a very frustrating mental health care system, or lack thereof, but, we have them on the call because they care. So, follow through with this, everyone. And I keep mentioning Concern and Options in Suffolk County because they follow up. They have a heart. I'm sure there's others, but I don't know everybody. And TSI is very large in the city of New York and Queens, where we're talking about, larger than most, right, Leslie? So, which matters. Anyway, so I'm going through the questions here. I'm trying to. Everybody's got a lot of detail in their questions, which I sincerely appreciate, because it's a complicated process, and we're on the very tip of all of this. You really need a care coordinator to help you navigate the system. It's just not easy. As Jeff said, maybe they make it that way so you fall through the cracks. I don't know, whatever. But you need a care coordinator to navigate this process. Leslie, Jeff, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you think we want to kind of go towards the ending of the night and with either hopeful or just a sentence or two?
I mean, I think what you just said, reach out, make that phone call. I don't think many agencies are going to just say, "Oh, I don't want to help you." I know if someone calls me, I work completely in residential services, but whatever, their need is, I will let them know whatever resource I'm aware of that they can go to that's going to help them and what services we can provide for them. I don't think anyone's going to turn you away and say, don't bother me with these questions. That this is what we do.
Jeff, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think Leslie is making some very significant points because we are all in this because we care. We didn't choose this way of life because it's a means of getting rich. So we do all care, and I think what's important is that when you decide that your loved one is not receiving the care that's adequate or is not in the system that is good for them, understand that the system is extremely large and that not everything is for everyone. There will be individuals who will come to MHA and think that we are the devil and we run the worst programs in the world. And then there are other individuals who will come to us and think, oh my God, y'all are angels, y'all are so good. Everything you do is absolutely heaven. And TSI will experience the same thing. So will Options, so will Concern, so will all of them. So because the system is so large, don't force a person to see good in a situation that they see bad. Understand that the system is large enough and that if this isn't for you, there are no cookie cutter models. So if this one doesn't work for you, then don't worry about it. We'll stick with you. We understand you're not comfortable here. Let's help you get somewhere else. And that's the support that they need also from family. Because if everyone just tries to force them into a situation where they think it's bad and you know that it's not, that's not enough. Their perception is their reality. And so help them get it, help them find a place that makes them feel safe and that they belong, right? Because that's the key for what we offer working.
I have to say thank you to both of our guests. You've given us so much information, so many things to think about, and just emphasize if you have specific questions for either of our guests, contact them. If you have any other generic questions, contact us, 516-326-0797, and we'll try to get you the answers that you need. I appreciate it very much. Anyone else have any specific questions to have answered right now?
Again, a lot of questions are very detailed, and I so appreciate the crisis everybody feels they're in, and you are in crisis. It's difficult, but you really need to talk to a care coordinator specific for that organization and specific to your loved one's mental health situation and their unique scenario, because it's hard to say one off, this is what you should do. Dale, you've got your hand raised, and I see you've got a question in the chat if you want to ask your question. And then we're going to have to probably close the evening pretty soon. But Dale, if you want to speak. Dale, you're muted.
Dale North?
Yeah, I wanted to get Leslie and Jeff's number.
Okay, it's in the chat, and I will also be posting that on the webpage.
Okay.
But you can see it here. Here's Mental Health Association. I'll paste it again. and
What?
find Leslie's in there. But we'll be posting all of this as well as a recording. But Leslie, I'm just looking for your here earlier, and
I can put it in again.
I appreciate that.
That'll make it easier.
Yeah, I'm scrolling, looking to, here's your email. And Jeff, you put some hi, hello thing in there. I don't know what that was. There we go. Okay. Awesome. Okay.
Oh, I just realized I was on mute when I said all of that. It's a digital business card. I'm talking, I'm like, okay, I guess you don't care. No, it's a digital business card. So once you click the
Okay.
link, it'll open up my card. It offers you the opportunity to download and save it. So
Okay, I copied that onto a Word doc and I will be
there you go.
sharing that.
Thank you.
But I wondered what it was. Okay, thank you, Jeff. Okay. All right. We could go on forever because it's not simple.
Just a little sales pitch. NAMI Queens-Nassau does this almost every month, with different topics. Want to see what we're talking about? Go to our website, namiqn.org, and see not only our Wednesday meetings, but other things we do, support groups, classes, and all of these should help you. So check things out. That's why we're here.
Next month, our meeting, Gail Sills, are you still on there? I think it's going to be in person at Zucker Hillside Hospital, and it will be presented by Jamie Rosen, who is a mental health lawyer, and it will be talking about AOTs and the criminal justice system. Loved one is arrested, what do I do? That kind of thing. Unfortunately, we get calls like that all the time. I called 911 and it didn't go well. So both in Nassau County and Queens, it's not just a city of New York thing, it's everywhere. So Jamie will be talking about that. And then the following month will be our gala in May. And then the month after that, we will have women's health focused on mental health, postpartum depression, and things of that nature. And then really, as David just said, throughout the year, we, the third Wednesday, that's what this is, right? We have educational meeting, topics that are pertinent to all of us, of caregivers, of those with mental health concerns or somebody with a mental health concern. So we'll continue on through the year. The rest of the calendar isn't really confirmed, but we have something planned for every month. And one pitch for membership, it makes a difference. When we write grants, when we speak to Albany, our membership numbers make a difference in these conversations, and the funds, the commitment to NAMI Queens-Nassau means a lot to us. So your donations, membership, it all matters. It all really makes a difference and helps us provide nights like this. So
Janice, can I take advantage of your expertise and ask you to just talk about your nights for 2 minutes?
thank you, David. Good idea.
If you're here. Well, anyway, we have a group on Monday nights at Zucker Hillside Hospital for young and older adults who need some socialization. They meet every Monday night. There are usually activities. There are always activities planned, but sometimes when the weather is, thank you, Leslie, thank you so much. When the weather isn't good, or for example, this week we're afraid of the rain, so it became virtual, but it's usually not virtual, meeting at Zucker Hillside Hospital. And kids seem to have a great time. They're not kids. The young adults, in some cases, the older adults, have a great time with the Unite program. So if you want to find out more about that, check our website as well.
We also have peer support groups that are virtual and peer-to-peer classes. which teach our loved ones how to navigate their mental illness.
That plus we also have a class called Family to Family, which is an 8-week class once a week, um, where you learn about starting from the beginning. It's not my fault. It's not your fault. And going on how to deal with your children, deal with them socially, how to deal with their behaviors, agencies that you can go to. So if you're interested in that, check our website. The latest class is filled up, but we're always adding more classes.